Now, coming from this basic idea of geology, let me come to the site. So this is the local museum or local collection. It is run by a local club called Ramakrishna Club, and you can see that they have a kind of a rack, a wooden rack, on which they have kept some objects. So this site of Bahiri was first reported by Yogesh Chandra Bose in his book Medinipur Itihas in 1942, published in 1942. Incidentally, in the same book, he also reported the site of Mughal Mine. But that time, Yogesh Chandra, they are complete, they are not broken. So when I was going through this small collection, I thought that maybe one day that you find in the museum. So you have this kind of an image, right? Obviously, it cannot be dated, right? But it may be not early historic, maybe with the early medieval or medieval, or possibly early medieval. But I'm not getting the dating issue because we need more precise scientific dates. The one in between is basically a part of a quern. A quern is something, it's a lead quern. I think you also have one in this museum. So these are typical early historic querns that you find from all over India. Quern মানে হচ্ছে basically যার উপরে মশলা করা হয়। We call it sheet. Okay? So this is broken. Actually, they should have four. I think there is one specimen in this museum in the other room. So you get this type of querns, stone querns, in most of the archaeological sites in India. And these querns, they are normally dated to the early historic period. The last one, the one on the extreme right, is people have classified this one as a jar. But there is another opinion by one of my senior colleagues who say it is not an architectural feature. And I have also given a thought to it because if it's a pottery or a jar, then it will be very inconvenient to pick it up. You have one like this in this museum also. Okay? So I'm not really sure whether it's a jar, it's a pottery jar. It may be one of my senior colleagues from outside Bengal. He told me that possibly this was a pinnacle, placed on top of a building. Because if you imagine a jar should have some kind of a handle, but if you imagine picking it up, it would slip from between your fingers. So why would somebody use such an inconvenient piece of pottery? So again, we do not know. But what I want to show you is this, that if you look around this museum and if you look around that collection, they have similar objects. Okay, next one please. Yes, so thanks to Dr. Alok Chandra, he took it when he was in the field. So this is that dune ridge of Bahiri, as I was talking about. Okay, this is now being cut away, but I think this should be preserved. This is a part of our natural heritage, but because the sand thing is a issue now, so some people are cutting away this sand dune. But you can see the extent of the dune, right? And this dune can now be dated. Thanks to OSL dating, we have collected samples for OSL, which can be dated from Kalyani Isa. So hopefully within next few months, we'll be having dates, absolute dates from about the sand dunes. That when do they belong to the early historic period? Are they formed later? So once we know about the geomorphological features and their dates, then we can explain the development of human culture. Next one, please. Yeah, so this is not such a good site map. We have just completed a contour mapping, but I don't have the data, so I will show you. But here you can see that the middle part in the red is the area where we undertook this operation. And on the northern side and on the western side, you see two green lines. Those are basically calio channels. Calio channels mean they right? And the red area in between is the area of our operation. So I started excavating this site in 2013 when I was working in the Center for Archaeological Studies and Training, but then I shifted to the university, and then in 2020 I resumed my excavation. I have done a couple of more seasons, and now we have enough data which we can now try to process. Next one please. Yes, so these are the sand dunes. Again, these are the relic sand dunes, and you can see the famous geoarchaeologist Professor S.N. Rajguru and Dr. B.C. Deotale from Deccan College. So I'm thankful to Dr. Rajguru. He has been to this site several times and given me insights in how to go about understanding this site. And when this dune was being cut away, you can see the amount of pottery that was coming out. So there was no way that I could not excavate this site. Next one, please. Okay. So these are the basic objectives of these excavations as we have to submit to the ASI when we apply for license. Next one, please. Yeah. So this is the temple that I'm talking about, which is dated to 1565 AD, right? Roger will be able to tell you more
84.
about it. And it is the earliest
84.
Jagannath 84. There's an inscription, Odia inscription. So this was basically the area that was ruled by Bhimsen Mahapatra, who was basically from Orissa, right? And then he appointed somebody called Gadadhar Nanda as a priest to oversee this temple. So this is the earliest Jagannath temple, as Roger has informed me, in Bengal. But now it's an earlier image, and I so much wish that ASI had actually preserved it, because if you go there now, you will see a completely different picture. Okay, so unfortunately ASI did not preserve it, but that's a different issue. But you see that when we started, or when we planned this excavation, we thought that let us excavate just in front of the temple without disturbing it, to see, because this temple stands on the highest portion of the sand dune. Next one, please. Yes, so we carried out some operation just in front of the temple. And next one, please. Yes. So this is the what we call the stratigraphy. So although we did not get much of in situ material, we did find a continuous sequence from the early historic till the medieval. The dating of early historic is again based on typology, because we found one terracotta object from this deposit, which is dated to, as you can see in the museum, it is dated to 1st century AD, or what in art historic parlance they are called Shungakushan terracotta. And then we have the similar type of pottery, and then there's a change in pottery. We have early medieval pottery and also medieval pottery. Having said this, please, I would like to make a point that early medieval pottery is again a problem. So what you're calling early medieval is based on a good hunch rather than dates. But now once we get the OSL dates, then I shall be able to tell you in more precisely the dates of the deposits from which this pottery comes. Next one, please. So this is the chronology. So you see that this site is a very interesting site which has a continuous occupation from the early historic till the early modern. In fact, there are two important mottes of the sannyasis which were used in the 18th and 19th century. You know, people before Calcutta route was there, people used to go to Gangasagar from Midnapur because it was easier. So from Ahiri, you can take a boat and go to Gangasagar, because this Calcutta route was much more difficult if you read those novels. So this Calcutta route is much later. So earlier people used to come from North India, stay in Ahiri, right? And then take a boat from Rasulpur river and cross over just to Gangasagar, because Gangasagar is just across the Hooghly. So that was the route. So in the 18th century, the sannyasis coming from North India would be staying in these months. So we have a continuous sequence from early historic to early modern, and that's why I'm saying that it's a very good site which one can develop as a tourist spot, a heritage spot. Anyway, that's one issue now, but next one please. Now the excavations of 1920 and 21-22, we selected an area which is called Court Bar. People say there was a court, but I think it's an Apobhrangsha court, because normally with archaeological sites we come across this term, court, which would tell you that there's something old about it, right? So, but people, local villagers, they call it court, because they say there was a court here. But I think it's basically there's came from court. Next one, please. Now, as you can see in the Google map, this is the area. It doesn't matter. So on the right hand side, you can see this is a Google map image of the area where the operation actually took place in 2020 February and in April 2022. Fortunately, I could get hold of this cadastral map, which is on the left side, and you can see that dark number 250 is called the Court Bar or the court. And you can see a moat, and this is an old cadastral map. So this moat is also indicated in the cadastral map. Our bhetore je jayagata ache, that is the area which we chose for excavations. Next one, please. Yes. Now coming to the stratigraphy of the site. Now see, when we talk about stratigraphy and understanding archaeological site, the first thing we do is to develop its stratigraphy. But a site which is as large as Bahiri, it is about 1 square kilometer in extent. It has multiple layers of stratigraphy, multiple areas of stratigraphy. So one way of looking at stratigraphy is to understand how people are using it. So here we find three units where we do not find in situ archaeological objects. So I am calling it on the fringe areas of the site. These are on the middle and on the right. These are areas which have been refilled or which have been redeposited. So again, I can confirm this after I get the OSL dates. So what people actually did was, when they came here, they first of all filled up the land with some kind of debris, right? So all around the main area, the Kotbar area, if you look on the south, the west, and also towards the north, you will see that these kind of deposits are available where you do not have in situ archaeological, much less in situ archaeological objects, which means that these areas will be filled up. Possibly in coastal areas, people will have to have a landfill. We call it the landfill activities, which means that you dump your objects in order to heighten the level of the land, and then you can start building your habitation. Next one, please. But the actual stratigraphy within the site comes from our excavations, which we undertook at the middle of Kotbar. Maybe it's the photograph is in the next slide. So here you can clearly see, particularly the extreme right one, the stratigraphy of the site. This is early historic, okay? And you can see that we have reached the natural soil, and on top of the natural soil, you can see the archaeological debris. And these potteries, along with radiocarbon dates, charcoal, and OSL dates, can give you the exact sequence, exact stratigraphic sequence. So stratigraphy has to be developed based on both artifacts as well as dating, absolute dating. Now, you can see that on the right hand side we have a pit like cut, and on the bottom we did not find any in situ material. These are all debris dumped in order to raise the level of the land. But these debris belong to the early historic period. The pottery coming from the lowest level belongs to the early historic period, particularly pottery. But on top of it, you will see that there is a brick, a course of brick. And when I was thinking that it's medieval, because I do not work in early medieval and medieval, but Dr. Rajat Shankar, when he was in the field, he confirmed that this would be definitely not later than 10th century later. So if we look at the entire stratigraphy, the story is this, that when people came here, they actually was, they dumped their bricks and pottery, they were living somewhere nearby, raised the level of the land, and started settling here. Now, next slide, please. Yeah, next one. Sorry. So just go back. Yeah. So maybe I'll just go over there for a minute and explain it to you, particularly to the students. So what happens is basically this part was part of the mound, which has been cut away by the person who owns this land. He's a farmer. But fortunately, he has left the early historic level for us. So the early medieval deposit, basically structure, they have been already destroyed. So when we start excavating, we are hitting early historic right at the top. So the early medieval, unfortunately, here at least in Kotbar, has been destroyed, right? And what we are finding here is from the in situ objects are from the early historic levels. Okay. Next one, please. Yeah. So there are brick structures within the site which we came across accidentally. Next one. And there are some brick structures within our excavated trenches. So we took about, so far we have taken about 7 trenches and get about YA1, YA2, YQ1, YB2. So archaeologists will understand my trench locations. But there are 3 other trenches taken elsewhere. So you see that these bricks, majority of them are semicircular in shape. Now, the thing about an excavator is this, that when you're an excavator, you're a student. Because no textbook can teach you excavation. So when you start excavating, all your textbook knowledge goes out of the window. And you have to be a student and try to learn what is happening. Right? So whoever excavates, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Kamal, Dilip Kamal will agree with me, and even Dr. Shubha Majumdar, Dr. Chakrabarty, that excavation, when you're excavating, you're a student. So you have to learn from other people. Okay? Because textbooks will not give you any idea. Their textbooks are for passing exams as far as excavations are concerned. So when we started excavating, we found that none of them were in course. In the course মানে হচ্ছে একের ওপর এক দিন, they are all dislodged, they are not in situ, but they are not so disturbed that they have been dislodged completely from their location. They are disturbed but locally disturbed. So again, I do not know right now this semicircular brick-builder, what was the reason for making this bridge. One could be well, but then you'd be having a course if it's a well or a soak pit. Okay, I have some explanation about which I will talk about later. But again, it's a issue that I'm trying to understand after excavation. Next one. Okay, so this is the view of the area. You can see that I'm standing on that brick wall, that early medieval brick wall, and I'm looking north. Okay, I'm looking north, and you can see our trenches right in the middle of the field. So এটা হচ্ছে কোটবারের মাঝখানটা. It's a flat land, so easy to lay your trenches. And right on top we are doing the early historic. And to the farmer, আর দূরে দেখা যাচ্ছে উঁচু মাউন্ট. So that was the actual level. Okay. So unfortunately, contouring এখনো আমার ডেটাটা পাইনি. Otherwise, I will show you the contour also. So altogether 7 trenches have been taken. And next one, please. Yes. Now, the method that I decided to follow is something that is not regularly followed in Indian archaeology at least. It is called single context recording. In England, they have a mouthful name for it. It's called Harris matrix, but I call it single context recording. It means that what is a single context? What is a context? Any activity, any kind of feature that you identify as human activity. That may be building a wall, that may be laying a pot, that may be digging a pit. Everything is related with human activity. So in normal Müllerian method, or the traditional method, we excavate by layer, as I have shown, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. Whereas in single context, you excavate by understanding all the different activities that had possibly taken place, both anthropogenic and non-anthropogenic, and then try to understand what in archaeology we call formation process. What is formation process? At the site, it is not a capsule. A site will not remain in the same position as it was left by inhabitants. It will change. There will be earthquake, there will be flooding, people will, things will move. So if you are excavating and if you think that you are excavating a capsule of time, you are wrong. You have to understand the formation process. Until and unless you understand the disturbance, you will not understand what is the primary activity. So our one way to understand an archaeological site is to understand whether it has been disturbed. Of course it has been disturbed, but to what extent, right? And how much. And then you can make meaning of the deposits. So single context means that every context, every area that you may think have something to do with human activity is to be excavated separately. So normally in layer excavation we excavate by layer, but here we excavate by context. So it takes a lot of time. And you cannot excavate by big axes, you have to excavate by knife. It takes a lot of time and it's a tedious job. Next one please. Next one. Some problem. Can we just correct one thing? Sorry, I'll take a minute. I think off on the problem. I'll take just a minute and 5 minutes and shift for you. I will not take much of your time. Thank you, Dr. Parveen. Thank you for this. So sorry for the interruption. These are our technical teachers. Are you able to see all of you? Okay, so I'm just going down, scrolling down to my Okay. So, thank you, thank you. So, as you can see, here, these are my 4 trenches. So, again, let me go back there so that you can have a good look at it. So, these four trenches, YA1, YA2, YB1, and YB2, they have several recorded contexts. And as I will show you, next one, just scroll it down, please. Can anyone help me? Yes. Please go scroll down. Please keep it here. Yeah. So do you see here that there is a, yeah, please. Thank you. So this is part of the trench which we were excavating, and all these deposits have been excavated separately, individually, not according to layer. And as you can see here, there is an in situ jar, okay? And then there are some structures here. And inside this jar, we were getting a lot of bone materials. And not charred or eaten bones, but bones which have not been charred. So Dr. Aarti Deshpande Mukherjee was at the site, and she confirmed the animals, particularly deer, cattle, sheep, and goat. And it would seem that people were storing meat inside the pots. So this is I wanted to just tell you that this excavation is telling us not so much about the port directly, but it is telling us something about how people started adapting to the coastal environment, okay? And how people were living. Imagine the type of pottery that we have got from here. I will just show you. Can you scroll down, please? Yes. Now, please keep it here. Now, this is a structure about which I am also really confused, because it looks like a structure where the bricks have been cut. And my interpretation is this, that if it had been a storage area, this could have been used to insert a wooden pole, because any kind of area should have a roof-like structure, because we are getting early historic tiles from this level also. So again, I was a little confused by this is my preliminary interpretation. Next one, please. So this is a detailed view of the context. Okay, so you see there is a top layer which is full of small portions, broken portions, but as you remove that context, we come to the next context where we are getting almost complete jars. Complete pots right? And complete pots in their almost in situ condition. Next one, please. That's. Can you see the bones, long bones inside the jar? Right? Complete pot, and there's a bone, long back the bone that is on the right, on the left hand side, and on the right side you can see a long bone just in front of a large jar, right? Next one, please. So coming to the pottery, again we are classifying almost thousands of pottery, because in archaeology, one or two objects will not give us the idea. You have to study pottery in thousands or in lakhs. Okay, so these are some of the styles, typology, possibly of the early medieval phase. Next one, please. Yes, now I will stop here for a minute. These are basically classified as knob pottery. I do not call it knob to wear, but you see they have a knob in between. And this type of pottery is also come from, like Professor Dr. Bhatia was saying, we have seen this pottery in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, right? They have been reported from the early historic sites in Thailand and possibly Myanmar, right? this type of pottery, strangely, I have not encountered from Kamloops that way. But in Lahiri, we do find this type of pottery, which indicates possibly some kind of maritime connection. Next one, please. Yes, so these are the large. Now see, we are getting not just one. Badike ka alada, Dandike ka alada. The same style, but you see the designs are different. Right? So people were, the craftsmen, the potters, they were manufacturing pottery and they were experimenting. They were using different types of designs. Next one, please. And this is one unique piece where we have pottery decoration in the shape of a buffalo. This is an applique decoration, right? It's not a terracotta object, it's a part of a pot on which you can see those horns. Machkhaner mukta bhenge geche. Unfortunately, while digging, although we were using knife, but it got damaged. But this is part of a buffalo, and this was applique on the pot. Next one, please. Hold it. So inside a jar, we have a symbol, right? And this is what we call a potter's mark. অর্থাৎ কুমোর যখন তৈরি করছে, possibly he will leave some mark to identify that it has come from his workshop. Professor Shushmita Basumukimda has shown us the punch mark points. I can tell her very interestingly, and I had a discussion with her. I have symbols which are similar to the punch mark symbols, but stamped on pottery. I'm not getting a single coin from this side so far, not a single coin. But the symbols are being repeated on pottery, right? That, unfortunately, I forgot to insert that slide, okay? But similar type of symbols that you use on coins, the same type of symbols, but the wheel, that spoke one, much kind of that symbol I'm finding on pottery, right? So symbols are being shared, Next one, please. It's a small pot, and we are getting I think in the beginning they showed you bone stylus. অর্থাৎ bone tool, stylus মানে হচ্ছে like a pen. So I think this was a pot, ink pot sort of thing, because we are also getting bone stylus. So প্রথম যে presentation হলো in that I think Dr. Manoj showed us bone stylus. So from this context, we are also getting stylus and we are also getting small pot. Possibly writing was also there. Next one. And my last slide, I have also found some terracotta objects, not many. On the left one, you will find similar type in this museum as well, right? This is again first century, it's a plaque, right? Terracotta plaque. And on the right hand side is a molded pottery, molded terracotta object. I have been informed by Dr. Gautam Sengupta that the first one, of course, is the so-called Shunga Kushan or first century AD. But the next one, he says, could be of the post-Gupta period, right? So again, not much of terracotta, but again there is a scope by which we can compare these terracotta objects with Kamloops Museum and try to develop a kind of a digital sequence. Next one, please, and I think I have come to the end of my slideshow. So I thank all these organizations and individuals, even my colleagues, because your colleagues will have to bear with your long absence when you are excavating, right? So they have to do the job of teaching students when you are away. So thanks to all these organizations and people. And yet in the end, I would like to make one point that this excavation is a very preliminary preliminary travel into the past of coastal Bengal. We are yet to process the data. Dr. Dilip Khamari, sir, we are yet to process the data. So hopefully by June or July, I should be able to give some kind of a report, because we are getting thousands of pottery, and I have tried to collect every pottery. In excavation, we don't throw away anything. We collect every small bit, and I have 3-4 students who are working